Hi guys, and welcome back to Texas History for Kids, episode number 49. I'm your host, Michelle Gallegos. Today's episode is entitled Dia De Los Muertos. So today we're exploring a celebration full of color, full of life, and skeletons. Yup, we're talking about Dia De Los Muertos, or the Day of the Dead. But don't let the name fool you. This holiday is anything but spooky. Imagine a day where families gather, decorate, sing, and remember their loved ones who have passed away. Sounds pretty cool, right? But here's the question. Why would people want to celebrate the dead? Well, stay tuned to find out because the answer is rooted in ancient history. The origins of Dia de los Muertos takes us back, way back to the time of the Aztecs, a mighty civilization that lived in Mexico long before the Spanish arrived. The Aztecs had a very different view of death from what we might think of today. They didn't see it as something sad or scary. To them, death was just another part of life, almost like crossing over to the next big adventure. They believed in an afterlife where ancestors would live on watching over them. But here's a twist. This celebration didn't happen in the fall like it does now. The Aztecs actually honored their dead in the summertime. So, how did this celebration of life and death move to November 1st and 2nd? Well, hang tight, because the answer involves Spanish explorers, a Catholic holiday, and a merging of cultures. Hello, all you history buffs out there. I'm Michelle Gallegos, a former educator turned podcaster. Are you passionate about learning stories of Texas history that you don't exactly get to learn in school? Sure, you've heard about native tribes, a few famous battles, and historical figures like Stephen F. Austin. All topics that every Texas student should learn about. But what if I could offer you even more? Imagine not only listening to this podcast, but also having access to reading materials that accompany each episode, making it easier to dive into the topics that interest you most. I think you'll love what I have to offer. Alongside each podcast episode, I've created detailed digital reading resources and comprehension activities designed to deepen your understanding and enhance your knowledge. These materials are perfect for students who are eager to explore topics further, and for teachers looking for ready-to-use activities in the classroom for resources. You'll find true, factual stories about Texas history, complete with suggested activity questions that bring classroom discussions to life. Dive deeper into our episodes by visiting michelleauthor.com and get access to engaging material, fun activities, and captivating historical stories. Let's make education enjoyable and impactful together. The roots of Dia de los Muertos started as a celebration in Mexico and around the world. It goes back about 3,000 years ago to the traditions of the Aztecs and other ancient people in central Mexico. They believed that death was a natural part of life and that after someone died, their soul had to go on a long journey to reach the land of the dead, called Mictlan. The journey took years and was filled with challenges. So to help their loved ones on this difficult journey, families would leave food, water, and tools for them. These rituals were originally held in August. Fast forward to the early 1500s, when Spanish explorers, led by Hernán Cortés, arrived in Mexico. The Spanish brought them with their own traditions, including Catholic holidays. So one of these holidays was called All Saints' Day, and it was celebrated on November 1st, and All Souls' Day on November 2nd. The Spanish settlers and the native people began to blend their customs. And that's how Dia de los Muertos found its new date, right after Halloween. According to the tradition, the gates of heaven opened up at midnight on October 31st. allowing the spirits of children to reunite with their families for 24 hours until November 1st. Then, on November 2nd, the spirits of the adults could return to visit their loved ones as well. But unlike Halloween, which can be spooky or creepy, Dia de los Muertos is a bright, joyous celebration of life. In medieval Spain, people celebrated All Souls Day by bringing wine and special bread called pan de ánimas, or spirit bread, to the graves of their loved ones. They would also cover the graves with flowers and light candles to help guide the souls of the dead back to their homes. In the 1500s, when Spanish explorers came to the Americas, they brought these traditions with them. Their view of death had also been shaped by the bubonic plague, which made them see death in a darker, more serious way. The bubonic plague, also known as the Black Death, was a disease that spread across Europe and eventually into the Americas. It was caused by bacteria that were spread by fleas living on rats. This disease was incredibly dangerous, causing high fevers, painful swelling of the lymph nodes, and often death. It killed millions of people, wiping out about 1/3 of Europe's population at the time. Since people were dying in record numbers, honoring them became even more important. On the Day of the Dead, people believed that the border between the spirit world and the real world disappears for just a short time. During this special period, the souls of those who have passed away come back to visit their loved ones. They join in the celebrations by eating traditional foods, drinking, dancing, and listening to music with their families. Now here's where it gets really interesting. You've probably seen those colorful skulls. They're known as calaveras, or the skeletons dancing around, called calacas. These playful symbols aren't meant to be frightening. They're a reminder that death isn't the end in this culture. Now, calavera means skull, but in the late 1700s and early 1800s, it also referred to funny, sarcastic poems that made fun of people. For example, on many tombstones of the time, you might see something funny written on the epitaph. These calavera poems became a popular part of Dia de los Muertos celebrations and are still enjoyed today. You can find them in newspapers, hear them read aloud, and even see them on TV and radio. So, fun fact, La Calavera Catrina is considered one of the most recognizable Day of the Dead icons. The way she was created was not meant to build her into the icon she is today. In the early 1900s, a printer and artist named Jose Guadalupe Posada used skeletons in his artwork to make fun of politicians, and it was his way of commenting on politics during the Mexican Revolution. Jose Posada created an etching of a skeleton woman dressed in fancy French clothes, which he called Calavera Garbancera. It was meant as a joke on how some Mexicans were copying European styles instead of embracing their own heritage and culture. So Jose Posada is known for saying, "Todos somos calaveras," meaning we are all skeletons, suggesting that beneath our appearances, we are all the same. The original etching sold for a mere penny to the poor and working class members of Mexico. So, La Calavera Catrina was not born just yet. She did not become famous until 1944, when Jose Guadalupe Posada's work was featured in a big art show at the Art Institute of Chicago. Now, this exhibition was a special project that was put together by the museum and the Mexican government with the help from a U.S. government agency. So during World War II, they were tasked with using art and culture to build strong friendships between the United States and Latin American countries. So in 1947, La Calavera Catrina became more famous because another artist named Diego Rivera painted Posada's skeleton in his famous mural. Only this time he added a large hat and he named it La Calavera Catrina, meaning the rich. Rivera, of course, is arguably the greatest artist in Mexican history, and his epic murals remain internationally famous. So today, La Calavera Catrina has become one of the most famous symbols of Dia de los Muertos. People decorate with bright colors and they set up ofrendas on these days. An ofrenda is an altar which is placed somewhere special in your house that holds pictures of loved ones who have passed away, along with relics that remind their family of who they are and who they were in life. So you might find someone's favorite food, a guitar if they were a musician, an animal that they may have liked, like a rooster or a horse or even a cat. You might find their favorite perfume or scented candles to remind them of their loved one's smell. If one of the spirits was a young child, you might find small toys in the altar. It's nicely decorated and it's set as a reminder to the living not to forget those who have passed away. Now, during the modern Day of the Dead celebrations, people often wear skull masks and eat candy shaped like skulls. They also eat a special bread called pan de muerto, or bread of the dead, basically. And it's similar to the pan de ánimas used in Spain's All Souls Day traditions. Other foods enjoyed during the holiday include spicy dark chocolate and a drink called atole. Although these are eaten year-round too, so if you want to wish someone a happy Day of the Dead, you would say, Feliz Dia de los Muertos. But why food? Why flowers? Is there a special reason for these decorations? Well, some say that during Dia de los Muertos, the spirits of the dead come back to visit. The altars guide them home with the scent of their favorite foods and flowers, using glows of candles to light their way. It's just like the way we celebrate being in a family when we're alive, only on this day, the living put out their dead loved ones' most favorite things in hopes that they'll be reminded of home. But here's the big question. Do spirits actually come back, or is it just a beautiful tradition? While there's no scientific proof, many families believe that for these 2 days, their loved ones are actually close by. They tell stories, they laugh, and they remember them. Not with sadness, but with joy. Although they may not actually see the spirits of their dead loved ones, they feel their presence. It's almost like a family reunion with those who've passed on. And if you've ever visited a Dia de los Muertos celebration, you'll notice how alive everything feels. It's full of music, dancing, and of course, food. One of my most favorite movies that includes Dia de los Muertos theme is a very popular movie among the kids. You may know it. It's called Coco, and it was released by Disney and Pixar. It pays a wonderful homage to the Mexican tradition, in which a young boy is transported to the land of the dead and meets up with his long-lost family members who have passed away. The movie beautifully highlights themes of family, tradition, and the power of remembering those who have passed on. Now, before we wrap up, I bet you're wondering, does everyone celebrate Dia de los Muertos the same way? Actually, no, some don't celebrate it at all. But different regions of Mexico and even in other countries have their very own special ways of celebrating. Dia de los Muertos is celebrated in Texas because of the state's strong cultural ties to Mexico. Texas was once a part of Mexico, and many people living in Texas today have Mexican heritage. Over time, Mexican traditions like Dia de los Muertos became a part of Texas culture, especially in areas with large Mexican American communities. The celebration helps families in Texas to honor their ancestors, remember their loved ones, and of course stay connected to their cultural roots. In Texas, you can find parades, festivals, and altars all honoring the dead, just like in Mexico. It's a way for people to celebrate their heritage and share this beautiful tradition with others. Some towns host parades with giant skeleton puppets, while others have quiet, candlelit ceremonies in cemeteries. It's a tradition that's constantly evolving, but it always keeps one thing at heart: celebrating life by honoring the dead. So if you're interested in reading more about this topic, shoot me an email with the subject line Dia De Los Muertos, and I'll send you a free copy of the article and activities that accompany this podcast. If you're enjoying these stories about Texas history, you'll find even more to explore on michelleauthor.com. You'll find reading passages, engaging activities, and comprehension questions that pair perfectly with every episode. It's a great way to keep the learning going and help your kids dive deeper into the stories they love. Check it out and let's keep making history fun and meaningful. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please feel free to email me at michellegallegos.author@gmail.com. Thank you for listening, and remember, yesterday is today's history.